So Bob, thank you for jumping on. We've wanted to have you on for a while now. I know you've been negotiating back and forth with your agent on to get you on, but we're happy
Oh,
to
thank
have you.
you. Thank you for having me on and not waiting for me to get back in the magazine. This is good.
Where are you located? I guess one of the boroughs, right? If you come to Staten Island.
Yeah, Manhattan right now. I'm usually doing a show like this from my house in Pennsylvania, but I'm in New York City for the writers conference coming up. So I just put together something here in my apartment.
Oh, nice. Very nice. Well, thanks for jumping on. We're going to get into a lot of stuff, but I think you know the way we like to start, if you don't mind, with just a quick background on your early days of breaking into cartooning.
No, sure. Thank you. And Paul, you're going to give me a hand signal if I'm going on too long, because the story can be a little bit of a long trip here. And it started with me doing a book. I was publishing a book. And as a matter of fact, I think your last guest should be Matt Diffie, unless you did another interview in between. I ran into Matt over at Simon & Schuster because he was doing a book at the same time, The Rejection Collection. And I was doing my first book. And I was working on this book thinking I needed an intermission. So I went to the cartoon bank and I spent some money buying some cartoons to make an intermission in my book. And I went and bought cartoons from like Sam Gross and Michael Maslin through the cartoon bank. And actually, it was really expensive. I didn't know anything about cartoons at the time. I spent a lot of money. I had already spent a lot of money doing the book for research. I had spent like over $20,000 traveling around the world researching for the subject. And by the time I bought the cartoons for the intermission, I ran out of money. So I kind of filled in a couple of blanks with my own cartoons, and I just gave it a whirl. I didn't really know much about cartoons, but I was an illustrator. Anyway, I became friends with Sam Gross after the transactions. And as a matter of fact, me and Sam and Michael Maslin are very close friends now. Anyway, Sam invited me for my birthday to one of those New Yorker lunches. So I went and I had a really good time. And I asked if I could come back. And he said, sure, come back and bring 10 sketches because I dare you to try. He had already known my work a little bit because I was a humorist. I was writing columns so like Time Out and Village Voice. And so I had been writing comedy, but I never did cartoons. But Sam and me became closer and he gave me that dare. And I had a hard time the first time coming up with 10 cartoons. So I came in maybe 2 or 3 weeks later. It took me about 2 or 3 weeks to come up with 10 ideas. But I showed up at the office and he was nice enough to introduce me to Bob Mankoff. And it started then.
Wow.
Just to go back a little, the book you were working on was the Snowman book?
It was, yeah.
Did you, you had a deal to write that book before you pursued it? Sounds like you were
I did.
20,000 or so. I assume you already had a guarantee that it was going to be published, right?
Yeah, the book went to auction, which means that you have an agent and they bring it to a bunch of publishers and then they decide who wins over the book deal, the rights to the idea. And so I had that 7 years before I actually published it. Spent a long time working on the book. And so I did have money to spend, but I went through it all and I did it all on photo rights and stuff like that. I didn't know how much it was going to cost. And I did want cartoons from the New Yorker in there. I didn't know much about the New Yorker, but I thought it would class it up.
And what was the fascination with the snowman?
You know, really wasn't the snowman as much as the mystery. It was like, it could have been who told the first joke or who made the first sandwich. I've used that metaphor before in my other interviews, but it is what I was thinking. And that it's all about like the mystery. I was a big Sherlock Holmes fan. And I thought that, well, maybe if someone tried to find out who made the first snowman. And that's what started on this path. And then I had a dream team helping me. I had like professors of cultural history and art historians all around the world trying to find little bits and pieces that I could puzzle together to figure out when the earliest snowmen were made. And thanks to them, I had all these stories that no one heard before. Things like the miracle of 1511, and there's the massacre of 1690, and these great stories that revolve around snowmen and that no one really knew about. So I was really lucky. It was like as if I found a winning lottery ticket.
And people could still buy that book, right? Off your website?
Yeah,
I think your website links it to Amazon.
Yeah, the book went out of print. So what happened is because I ran out of money, it was never quite as luxurious as I wanted it to be. So I redid the book in 2018 and spared no expense and got these beautiful, lush photographs for the book. And now I did the illustrated history of the snowman. And now that's the book I recommend because it's a lot of fun for kids and for adults too. And it's got some really great photographs.
Huh, very nice. So the jump into cartooning sounds like you got in almost on a whim, but your art is so good. I have to imagine you've been drawing your whole life.
Well, I went to art school. I went to Pratt Institute, and I started teaching at Pratt when I graduated. So I was teaching there, and I was teaching at School of Visual Arts. And so I was teaching at a few different places since I went to college. So drawing has always been a part of my career in some way, except I never really did the cartoon part. I never really kind of meshed it together too much for whatever reason.
And then after that New Yorker lunch, you kind of got the urge to, or the dare to draw 10.
Well, it's the same thing with everything I try to do. I try to do on a dare. I kind of try to change up and challenge myself a little bit. Like right now, I'm doing a cookbook. I've never done a cookbook before, and I'm throwing myself into that. So it's kind of something different. It was actually a mistake at the time. Now I look back because I abandoned an illustration career that was going pretty well when Sam kind of dared me on this cartoon thing. And I just dove into the cartoon thing, just like Matt Diffie was explaining in the last interview, that he dove into all the books about cartooning and stuff like that. I kind of did the same thing. I just did a crash course on cartoons and did it really fast and went in with the batch. And I found out really fast that it's not easy to make a living from gag cartooning. And then I walked away from something that maybe I shouldn't, but that's the path that led me. So
How'd that first meeting go with Bob, with the first 10?
it was very nice. He was very nice. He purchased the first cartoon that I drew, the first cartoon that I tried drawing, he purchased. And at the time, I really didn't understand the system. I thought that the people I was in the office with me, the 12 people, that was it. And I thought that he was picking cartoons from, like a group of like 50 cartoons. And I assumed that I did the worst in the group. And I was kind of like apologizing because I assumed that he picked multiple cartoons from everyone else. And he was just giving me a pity buy and, saying that, here's one cartoon. But then I realized the next week when I went in, he and Vianney, and then I got to talking to people about like how this works. And that's when I learned there was all these people who were not at the office who were submitting, and that the numbers were pretty large.
So I guess at this point, you realize how remarkable it is to have sold on the first week. I don't know. We haven't spoken to anyone else that did that.
Well, I'm sure there's other people, and I consider it just luck. But at the same time, it was nice of Bob and Sam, and of course they made it happen. So I credit them.
What was that?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, what was that first one?
Oh, it's a horrible cartoon. It doesn't look like my other work because it was literally the first cartoon I tried, and that was Hecklers on Poetry Night.
Oh, I've seen it.
So I since developed a sort of look that I was going for after that. But I did dive into cartooning right then, and what I did was I hit up a lot of the other places. I went to Barron's, and I went to Mad Magazine and Harvard Business Review, and that actually was my meat and potatoes. The first year I started doing a lot of cartoons for them. I got nominated Gag Cartoonist of the Year the first 2 years, and I was doing quite a bit, and that was my livelihood. Not necessarily reliant on the New Yorker, but unfortunately now for everyone, the New Yorker is one of the only games in town.
Yeah.
What year was this, Bob?
This is 2007.
And that's very unusual to be invited to their the cartoonist lunch when you weren't even a cartoonist, right?
Well, Sam was taking me out for my birthday.
Mhm.
We become close, and we got to know each other because I was showing him the book, the Snowman book, and he was actually helping me like pick cartoons for it because I didn't know anything about cartoons. But he did say, go to the cartoon bank, and he recommended some people. And I got exposed to people who, I saw for the first time how great Gaham Wilson was and Leo Cullum. I had met those guys a little bit, but on a different way. I met them at the Playboy party because I was a ghostwriter for Playboy. And I was doing a lot of joke writing for different people, but I still wasn't in that circle of cartooning.
What type of joke writing for Playboy? I didn't realize.
Like Little Annie Fanny. I was a ghostwriter for a short time. I would write jokes for different comedians, stuff like that, just on the side. I did a lot of work for Spy Magazine and
Yeah.
National Lampoon. And I did some work for Mad. So
So it sounds like you were into humor before cartooning. What attracted you to humor? Was there something in your life where you just kind of like, I'm going to be funny?
yeah, I don't know, Paul. I always felt like I was trying to get the attention of people. Like it's just like an ego thing to try to make people laugh. And at the family dinner table, that was a really rough audience. I could not get anyone there to laugh. But like,
Family.
I think my classes with like watching The Odd Couple and like Mary Tyler Moore. I know a lot of people said they used to doodle and do peanuts and stuff like that. And I did like those things, but I think I got my background from watching comedy on TV.
Okay.
But being able to draw so well, it never occurred to you to draw cartoons?
Well, I was doing illustrations. I think my ego kept me from doing cartoons. I think when I was in college, I was on this like kick that I had to prove I could draw well, so I was doing like serious illustrations. And my dream then was to get into Sports Illustrated. I wanted to get into Sports Illustrated, which I did. And I wanted to work for the major magazines like the New York Times. And I did that. But then I realized I was just doing sort of like visual gymnastics. Like I was trying to, I was trying to show off. And instead of just doing pieces that had like a message maybe, or said something more. I'm trying to do that with cartoons. I'm trying to make the cartoons, mean something more.
Yeah. Just because I don't want to forget, because it's so perfect for this podcast, I did read that you were a finalist for the caption contest. I assume that was well before this meeting with Sam Gross and Bob Mankoff.
Yeah, that was just a little something. This is when the contest was just once a year. And it was like the second contest with Danny Shanahan had a doctor who was Quasimodo. And I remember my roommate in college dared me to do the contest. So I just entered it. And at that time, you got a phone call. As a matter of fact, when I made my sale with Bob, the first sale, that was a phone call too. It's before email. But I didn't do the contest since. And until recently, when Bob did the $1,000 contest, and that piqued my interest. But I lost.
I want to discuss both of those, but
We all lost.
But I'm 1 for 2, so I'm batting like 500.
You remember first of all, you had to mail in that caption, I think, right? For that Danny Shanahan caption contest?
You're right. You're right. I remember doing some kind of little form and you're clipping it out. And the magazine was much different back then. I got an issue. I was just looking through yesterday that I got a widow of a famous cartoonist gave me this issue. She wanted me to see it. And boy, did they have a lot of pages, a lot of ads, a lot of cartoons, a lot of everything. It's amazing how much everything has changed in 20 years.
Do you remember what your caption was for that Quasimodo?
Oh,
cartoon?
it was the stupidest thing. I do, because it was something like, Dr. Quasimodo, the name rings a bell. It's just like the low-hanging fruit. I swear I must have gave 10 seconds to it, like the most obvious answer.
Oh, there it is.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, look
Yeah.
at that.
Oh, interesting. We will post this on the Instagram page.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Danny actually joined my Facebook group years ago, and he sent that drawing to me to post in the group early on, which I
Oh.
thought was so great.
yeah, that is funny. We will put that on the Instagram page.
I was a little bit of a snot back in college. I didn't really respect the New Yorker too much. I remember getting a phone call, a message. And I said, well, is there a prize? How much cash do you get? And they said, there's no prize. What the hell do I care? I don't think I saw who won. I didn't bother because I learned that there was no cash prize.
Well, now that there was a cash prize in that $1,000 contest,
Oh, yeah.
do you plan on continue? So did you play the second one?
No, I didn't because I've been busy with stuff, but yeah, I'll take a look. When I get a chance, I'll take another look at that, and I'll definitely see what I could do.
Oh, good. And I look forward to seeing your name show up as a finalist in one of those contests.
Well, I doubt it. I really respect what you guys do, and I just want to make it clear that I understand how the numbers have changed. I believe the contest I was in, there was like 4 people entering.
Oh, I'm sure there were many.
Maybe a couple more.
But you know what's interesting is, and this is something I wanted to bring up. I told Beth this in an email, that there's 2 objectives here when coming up with a good caption. There's, you want to win the contest, or do you want to come up with a really good caption? They're kind of 2 different things.
Yeah, they're not always the same. When they are the same, it's great. But you're right, they're certainly not always the same.
Yes, sometimes I find that when I'm doing the captions myself, I find that it's a different type of writing. You're not trying to get to point A to B in the quickest, point of time. Sometimes you want to have timing in the cartoon. And so, as I was explaining, sometimes you want to add like sort of grace to the writing. Grace is like sort of adding a little bit of a pause or just some kind of writing that allows the reader to slow down.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for the contest. That's hard to do because people vote on that and they look at a caption for like a second. So you got to find a balance in there of, that grace, as you said, but you also need to have it a quick read.
Yep.
They got to see it and get it and laugh.
Yeah.
And then it gets to the Yorker, and then it's a whole nother game, when they pick the finalists.
Yeah. In the contest, you have to, like, you're basically writing captions for 2 different audiences. You're writing for the crowdsourcing because you have to get through that in order to make it to be a finalist. And then you want something that the judges will like too, so that they pick you as the finalist out of the highly ranked crowdsourcing. So it's kind of tough.
Yeah, it's sort of a byproduct of the nature of this contest is that you're developing a relationship with the cartoon and the cartoonist. It's just a bang shot. In other words, if you have a stand-up comedian who's on stage and you get to, he's winning over or she's winning over the trust of the audience, they can then embrace some silence. Like Sarah Silverman does this, and other great seasoned comedians can take the luxury in saying they slow things down. And as people get more familiar with a person in the magazine, like we've won over like Roz. Roz has won over our trust. She can do different things now that maybe other people can't do because we know she's going to take us someplace, and we're very comfortable where she's bringing us, and we know she's going to give us a payoff.
Well, being someone that played the caption contest, how did it feel to have your own cartoon in the caption contest? Did you enjoy that process? Because you've had a few.
Well, initially, because I was friends with Sam, he told me that there's no way I'm going to be a part of that. And so for years, I would turn down that offer. But then after a while, after we're going to lunch, I find out that like everyone else is not listening to Sam. And I'm like the only dope who's like not selling the caption cartoons. And I figured, well, it's good money. And beggars can't be choosers. So then I gave in and I did sell some.
Oh, so initially, Bob had
Oh,
asked
yeah.
you if you wanted one and you said, no, you know.
Oh, for
I don't-
years. Yeah,
Really?
initially I wouldn't have a part of it. I just, then initially I didn't like the contest myself, I just felt the same way as some people do. It's like finishing someone else's thing. It would be like me walking into surgery and putting in the last stitches. But your show, your podcast has actually changed my opinion because you had a guest on who convinced me that it's a separate thing. It's not a parlor game. It's a separate thing. It's not trying to be this or that. It's everyone having fun. And I kind of did a 180 on the whole subject after being a little bit upset. I mean, I'm still.
That's interesting. I'm surprised you had to do a 180 considering you played a caption contest. I would think you were the perfect
Oh,
cartoon.
no, I just did that that was just a one-off in college. I just did once. I had no interest in continuing. I mean, otherwise, if I liked it, I would have continued playing.
Yeah.
I just
Do you
felt,
remember, do you remember the first one you sold as a caption contest?
I'm afraid not.
I know two of yours, and I actually think the winners both were pretty good on them. One was a business had a corporate setting having a boardroom meeting within a prison. And the winner was, let's stay positive. Who would like to start with what went right? Which I think was a pretty good caption for that.
That's
I
the
actually
first time-
have that one scheduled in my Facebook group this week for Throwback Thursday.
Well, what a coincidence. But
that's the first time I'm hearing the caption.
really? So you didn't, when you had it in the caption contest, you didn't track what won?
No, because I felt it was something I should have finished. It was my work. It's up to me. I got paid. It's my job to come up with a caption. Not even because I didn't want someone else to do the caption, but because I felt I got paid. If I'm paid, I didn't do the work.
Huh.
That's an interesting perspective. Do you still have that perspective? In
Well,
other words,
everything's different.
drawing the cartoon is all that's a lot of work. To draw an image that works for a caption contest is not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, it depends on what day you ask a cartoonist. I mean, people would say, oh yeah, that's the heavy lifting, it's doing the drawing. But then you ask another day, people will say, oh, it's all the idea. 90% is the idea. And I've heard your guests say both. Everything is different for me now. So I'm off the rails totally in regards to how I work. Right now, I'm not doing batches. I'm doing cartoons that go directly to people and they get used in different ways, but I'm not doing sketches. They go straight to final.
How's that process work? I'm not even really sure what that means.
Well, it's not totally my choice. It's I actually lost my day job 2 weeks ago. I got fired from my job
Oh, sorry.
that I took during the pandemic to make money. I was working as an art director at a publishing house. The publishing house was bought out. They cut back on some departments. I got part of that layoff. And so I started doing cartoons again. And I've been doing them for places like, that no one sees, for bankers and newsletters and corporate places that are sort of like just inside things, or doing cartoons that people are hiring me as a hired hand because they have an idea that they think is really good. And I draw out their cartoon. It's a weird thing, but it's not unique. There are illustrators who do the same thing growing up when I was an illustrator. People like Bernie Fuchs and Bart Farbs and these great illustrators stopped getting work in magazines. And after you didn't see their work anymore. And all of a sudden they were getting hired for private commissions. And they were getting these big lucrative gigs to work for these, wealthy people just for private whatever. And they would do these illustrations that no one sees. With me, my cartoons now are not really in the public. I mean, the only cartoons in the public are the cartoons I don't like.
When did you stop submitting batches?
Yeah, a few months ago.
Oh, so you've been submitting to the New Yorker?
On and off. The last 2 years have been on and off when I can. But it's discouraging. It was hard. And so I was concentrating on other ways of making income and doing other things. I mean, it's been hard since really when Trump got elected. When Trump got elected, right after that is when things changed for me, because Barron stopped using cartoons, Harvard Business stopped using cartoons, Playboy went bankrupt. They used to pay me a lot for cartoons. They owed me a lot of money when they went bankrupt. Mad Magazine went bankrupt, and a bunch of other places. So all of a sudden, the whole cartoon landscape for me changed.
Yeah.
I wonder what the correlation is between Donald Trump getting elected and all those things happening
It just,
in the publishing world.
it was bubbling up. It was in the air that was going to happen, that the publications were just having a really hard time. So a lot of it's just coincidence.
Mhm.
So like, people say bad things happen in 3. This is like bad things happen in 300 things happened.
Are you familiar with the gag recap? Sort of unrelated.
I am. I just did a cartoon that he's using for the new issue. And I like this guy. There's this guy who puts it together, this guy, Van. I think his name is Van Scott. And
Yep.
I've been giving him different people who want to start in cartooning. Like I tutor people. I don't do it right now, but I was tutoring a lot of cartoonists. And I would send them his way and have them go through his thing. And that was very helpful.
Oh, I mean, I only mention it because it lists all the markets that are currently buying cartoons. So
Yeah.
I assume that would be of interest. Was there a particular decline point with the New Yorker? It was kind of after Trump, where were you just not coming up with the same ideas, or were you?
Yeah, just one day I stopped being funny.
I hate when you wake up and that happens.
It happens, yeah.
You
And,
look for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just all the different changes and stuff. I'd love to be back in the magazine. I would love to submit again. I hope to. I'll see what happens. I mean, I shared with you guys some of the cartoons that I explained that no one has really seen. And I just put them aside and collect them, and we'll see what happens.
Is there a particular reason you don't submit them? I mean, I'm sure you still.
Well, the cartoons I shared with you, I submitted.
Oh,
I did. And I don't want to post them on Facebook or anything.
Mhm.
So it's always been the case. I have like a folder on my computer that says A-work. And I just put it there and hope for the right time or the whatever. And hope that one day that people can enjoy it. Because it is a little, it's upsetting that the system is weird. It's a weird way this whole thing works with cartooning. Like I said, I'm doing cartoons now pretty frequently, but no one sees them. They're for individuals who are hiring me on the side.
I mean, I'm sure that, the New Yorker got more cartoonists. So I'm sure it's tougher to sell. But if you send, your batch every week, I'm sure you're going to get in a couple times a year.
I promise I wouldn't cry, Vin.
I mean, just looking at the quality of your work, as you said, you didn't stop all of a sudden coming up with good cartoons.
Well, thanks for saying that. And, I felt like it was nice of you guys to have me on the show. The least I could do would be nice enough for me to share my cartoons with you, because you're not seeing them. So I'm glad you did get a chance to look at them. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I actually started therapy a couple of months ago over this. It was an obsession. It was upsetting to me. And I don't look at the magazine right now. It's part of the 12-step program. And my wife does get the subscription and she reads it. But yeah,
do you send to the other markets? I mean, I know they don't pay as much.
Once in a
but it's nice to
while.
get stuff published and keep the
Yeah,
confidence up, or just keep the, so they're going somewhere.
Yeah, I do. Once in a while, I submit to Airmail. And I appeared in their magazine a couple of times. I try Wall Street Journal, and they did buy a couple of cartoons here and there. And there's a magazine, Alta magazine in California. And these magazines have approached me. there's some magazines that have asked me to do cartoons for them, like Reader's Digest and stuff. And I have done cartoons for them, but I'm not really sending them batches. I'm sending them cartoons, and they've been kind of buying them, which is nice. They know my work really well, and they're being supportive. But you're right. The amount of money is much less. I love Reader's Digest, but they used to pay like 4 or 5 times more than they can pay now.
Mhm.
I totally understand why. I mean, everyone's, struggling and tightening their belts. It's just a really difficult time.
Considering your art background, as you said, you were drawing different style of art before the cartoons. Have you tried New Yorker covers? It seemed like that's likely up your alley.
I did do some covers. I pitched some covers, and I did have some people who were at the magazine, an editor or two, kind of gave me a little note saying that I almost got picked, and that it was close, but no cigar. And after a while, maybe after like 50 tries, I quit.
I'm sure it's coming up with a cover and it's very time consuming for something not to sell. I would imagine.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
I mean, because I don't think you could send those, correct me if I'm wrong, cartoons, you could send a rough. You could just send kind of a rough draft, and they know you have the skills to finish it off. I would assume with a cover, you have to send the final product.
It's exactly how I was thinking. I was thinking the same thing. I had to prove to them how it was going to look and leave nothing for chance.
Is that the case? I mean, because it's color, can you just send a rough draft cover and say, I'll do better if you buy it?
I have to tell you, you guys know as much about getting a cover bought as I do.
Oh, all right. We don't know much.
I have not sold a cover, and I was only guessing what was be the best way about, getting something accepted. I would submit like 3 ideas. I did this like once every 2 months because it did take a long time to do a painting and to do it up. And I was thinking just like you, they're going to want to see how it's going to look as a finish, and I can't leave anything to chance. And on top of it, I would see some of the rejections posted on Facebook by some of the New Yorker cover artists. And they were so good. And I got to the point that I realized I wasn't in their league. So I kind of gave up basically because I saw how good the work was.
I disagree. I've seen your bookstore book with all your paintings of the bookstores, and they're outstanding. I mean, they
thank you.
hold up to any New Yorker cover, I think.
Oh, thanks for saying that. But I see so many good ideas for covers, and I always wonder, how did that get through not getting used? I see so many, but there's just one cover a week, and there's just so many talented people. And the pie just keeps on getting sliced so thinly. It's tough in the arts. And I think that everyone's got to kind of find a way of, juggling a few different hats to keep it going.
Yeah. Also, the problem with covers is a lot of times they want it to be about very current events. So it's not like you can create them and then bank them and send them in. You kind of have to do them, as the world is moving around, like
they avoid that though. It seems to me as they're trying to be less topical. They try to, there's like not too many covers about global warming or anything. They kind of keep it to whatever. I mean, I used to do covers as an illustrator. I've done over 50 covers. And back then, the whole business of doing covers was really big business. Someone like Sports Illustrated would hire like 2 illustrators or maybe even 3 to do a cover. And they would go out and do the covers. And then the best one is the one they would use. I got hired to do a cover once for Sports Illustrated, and the initial pay was going to be $25,000.
oh my gosh.
The kill fee is what I wound up getting because Mickey Mantle died the night before, and they wound up putting him on the cover. So I got bumped.
Oh,
And my piece was about the NFL Expansion League, and that was already no longer news the week later. But I got a few $1,000s just as a kill fee. Now, there's no way you would get paid that much. I mean, I do some covers once in a while for magazines, and I get maybe like $1,000 or $1,500. And I'm very grateful and appreciative for that. But that's now the type of situation we're all in.
So that's rough because, anybody who wants to get into that area, I mean, there's nothing there for them anymore. I mean, you have to be established to, even do anything there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, my students, I spend a class or two each semester just talking about what are you going to do as a plan B? We break down all their other career alternatives of what we could do. And I really try to get them on going. I push them in that direction to say, you are not going to count on the arts alone. We're going to talk about really seriously, what are you going to do to make a living?
Good for you. I don't think enough teachers do that.
Yeah.
Good for you for doing that. That's the right way to approach it. In other words, don't give up the dream, do it, but understand you'll likely need a side job for a very long time.
Thank you, Vin.
Yeah. So
Don't cut that part out.
No, good on you for doing that. I think I know the answer, but do you have a favorite of your published New Yorker cartoons?
No, I don't. Not at all, because my favorite cartoons have not been published or not published in the New Yorker by a long shot. My favorite cartoon, for instance, would be like the Rubik's Cube, because that cartoon is very well known in Asia and in South America. And it's a cartoon that a lot of people know in those other lands, but that cartoon was not published in the New Yorker.
Really? The one behind you there was not published in the New Yorker?
Oh, no. I couldn't even get that cartoon held to even be considered.
That's a great cartoon.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. I didn't realize that.
Very strange.
No, thank you. No, I sent a couple of my favorite cartoons to you, and I have a whole bunch of favorite cartoons, but they have not been published.
That's strange. It's on the Cartoon Bank. I didn't realize they put cartoons on their own Cartoon Bank that were not ever published in the magazine. It
eventually ran about, I don't know, 5 years after I did it, and after it went viral around the world. Reader's Digest ran it, and then they're doing a book of their favorite cartoons, and they're using that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, I can't believe they didn't buy that one. That is a perfect cartoon. That is excellent. I'm shocked. I thought that was a New Yorker cartoon. That's surprising.
I mean, in defense of the editors, it's, there's just so many submissions now. I don't even know if my cartoons get seen. There's so many coming in. It's really hard. If I was in the position of being editor, and I was a cartoon editor twice before for two different places, I can't imagine going through 1,000 cartoons in a week. I mean, my head would explode.
Doesn't sound very difficult to me. Maybe I'm nuts.
Well, Vin, I have to tell you, you said some things like
going through 1,000 cartoons as a profession does not seem like a difficult job to me. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'd have to be proven wrong.
Tell me when you become a cartoon editor anywhere, and I'm going to start submitting to you.
It sounds like a dream job to me.
Yeah, it sounds like A, good job, and B, not a difficult job. In other words, you don't have to do it. You don't have to do it in 10 minutes. You have 1,000 cartoons, and you go through them.
I think being a cartoonist is easier than being a cartoon editor, because there's a lot of weight on your shoulders and responsibility of like rejecting people. The rejection you have to give to people, I think, is tough as an editor.
All right. So that aspect of it is tough. I do think having to reject so many people is tough, but I don't think picking cartoons is a tough job by any means.
Okay, Vin,
but the rejection I totally agree with. That is hard.
So you're in your office, right? And the little girl comes in crying. Right, and she's got a cast on, and she's hobbling on. She's in a full body cast with a batch of cartoons, and you're going to sit there and you're going to say, "No, I'm not going to run your cartoons."
Right. So that part of it, the rejection, I agree, is very difficult. I guess the word difficult is where we're having.
And then there's 400 people like that coming into your office with a sad story.
Yeah, but they're not coming into the office anymore. They're emailing the cartoons.
Long emails, very long emails with tales of woe, financial problems and stuff. Vin, please buy. I need not one sale, but I need a group of them bought, please.
All right. So again, the rejection I understand is difficult.
All right.
choosing the best of 1,000 does not seem difficult to me.
No,
I could do that
I'm
with-
telling you, after half an hour, you'll lose all sense of what's funny after
Okay,
going
then
through.
I'll come back in
disagree.
2 hours. It's not something that has to be done in a day. You
Where's
have a week to
Vin?
look at
He
cartoons.
disappeared 2 hours in. Where did he go? I'm sorry. I
If
see
you
a
tell
lot
me you have
of,
to go through 1,000 in 5 minutes, okay, that's hard. If you have to go through 1,000 in a week, that is not a difficult task. In
I
my
see a
opinion.
lot of
Never
red
done.
flags.
Never done.
I go through cartoons all the time online, like cartoons that I've seen 1,000 times, and they still make me laugh. They still make me laugh out loud. So
But if you're looking at cartoons critically, I mean, as to is this funny or not funny, I guarantee you, you're gonna
Yeah.
your brain is just gonna get shut
Yeah.
down after at 500 cartoons.
Well, I remember Bob looking through all the cartoons, and he would be stone faced. He would go through the cartoons and he would never laugh. And there were times he thought the cartoon was funny, but he was so, he had seen so many that it was impossible. And I do remember him saying things like, this cartoon is good, we'll use it. But he wouldn't even crack a smile.
Yeah, that doesn't necessarily surprise me. I think it becomes a business. He's not really looking at it for enjoyment. He's looking at it as a business, which I think is a little different. So I can understand not laughing at it, but I can't be convinced unless I do it that it's very difficult.
It's
Hopefully,
very tempting. It's very tempting to do a trial run of some sort right with us. With this group, and we post cartoons. I mean, you're growing as a podcast. So maybe that's what you're going to do next. Like you could buy some cartoons for the website. That would be great.
yeah, we need to do like a Shark Tank type of thing, like where cartoonists present their cartoons to us and we vote on whether or not they're fun.
Oh, I like that.
That would be a great podcast. Emma should do that as a podcast. Go back to the live meetings, and
Mhm.
that'd be a good TV show for that. Watch everybody walk out crying.
Well, I have some favorites of Bob's cartoons that I want to mention. What my absolute, well, it's hard to say it's my absolute favorite, but it's ranks very highly up there, and it wasn't even published in the New Yorker. But it's hold on, let me see if I can share.
I just hope it's mine and you're not.
It's
Bring it up someone
yours.
else.
It's yours. I know all your stuff. This one. First of all, there was a bee in the car. It's a guy turning in the rental car and it's all bashed up. And he hands the keys to the clerk and he says, first of all, there was a bee in the car.
Thank you for showing this. I'm thinking that there are some listeners now who's just giving me a thumbs down that this is just so simple. But
No.
this is an example, I think, of what I was saying before about grace. If you just say there was a bee in the car,
Mhm.
instead you say, first of all, it adds a little bit of a layer. And I'm not saying that I know how to do cartoons the right way, but it is something I just noticed as I look at the winners for the caption contest. I have noticed that things have changed over the years. And that is a little bit of that lack of slowing down and adding grace to the caption.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
thanks for showing this.
Yes, I have some more. Can I show some more?
Please.
This one,
Ah,
Oh, it's game show.
the game show. And I
Oh,
love
God.
game show cartoons. And this one is, and that's why I'm still single. And there's a magician, a woman with a bunch of cats, and the third contestant is a older looking man with his mom. It's just so
this
funny.
was a cartoon that Emma bought for the New Yorker
Mhm.
after she started a couple of years.
That's
That's a
awesome.
good one.
Okay, wait, I have another one. This
Or-
one. The alien spelling bee. And they say this incomprehensible word, and then he spells it out, and then he says the incomprehensible word again, as if he's in an actual spelling bee.
This
It's
cartoon
so
really
funny.
reads for a podcast. Oh, God.
Yeah, I was about to say, this is,
I picked
this is
this.
probably the worst example you could have chosen for a
Well, I mean,
podcast.
I can't read the caption, but it's
Oh, that's
just
exactly why it's not good for a podcast.
alien spelling bee. It's hysterical.
I'm getting the feeling Vin's in my corner, and I thank you. I just,
Okay. How about this one?
that was like one of the second cartoons I did.
A man doing in a yoga class, and he's like all contorted with his legs in the air, and he says, "I've had a lot of free time this year."
Yeah, this cartoon was one of my first cartoons and was my second sale with the New Yorker from a long time ago. If you didn't point this out, I would have never remembered it. I mean,
love
I've
it.
done like about, I don't know, 3,000 cartoons, and you start to forget.
Yeah. And then this one, a man in a hospital bed smoking a cigarette through a glazed donut. And the doctor says, "I see, Mr. Pipkins, we're back on the bourbon and smoking through glazed donuts." But that one I wanted to ask you about also, because that one has the signature, has your signature, and is that Adam Carolla?
It is. And I didn't do more cartoons with him because I didn't get along with him. Well, we just didn't get along. I had a writing partner, and my writing partner, I lost him. He committed suicide.
Ooh.
And we were writing comedy for other things. We weren't doing cartoons, but we worked together on things. This was Len Belzer. He was the host of the NPR Comedy Hour. His brother was Richard Belzer. It was because of Len Belzer I met all these famous comedians, and why I know some of the funniest people in the world. I met like Larry Miller and reconnected with his brother, Richard Belzer, and Gilbert Gottfried, and so many other people.
Wow.
And so I've been very fortunate. I mean, for me, I've been given the best master class that a person could get. I've had a chance to have lunch with people, and other people I know, like Michael Palin from Monty Python and other people. I mean, just hanging out with these people, it rubs off on you. And I just have a knack for knowing people who are very funny. And now I know the three of you. And that the pool is growing.
Well, so what were you doing with Adam Carolla? I wasn't aware of that.
I was just a fan of his at the time. I mean, his politics have turned me off since, but I was just listening to him. And then there's a couple of times I was mentioned on podcasts, and then I contacted them, thanked them. And one thing would lead to another in the same way, like Mark Maron did something for me on his podcast, and Greg Fitzsimmons and Larry Miller, all these people have podcasts, and they've mentioned me, and I thank them, and I mention them, and you get to know each other. And the same way that now I've been working with who I consider the greatest humorist of our generation is Jack Handy.
Mhm.
And I consider it a privilege that we've become friends, and I work with him. And it's just like one thing builds to another. And they've also been very nice to me. They are fans of my work, not so much my cartoons, but like I had done a piece recently about becoming a model for clickbait.
Mhm.
And that piece I heard from a lot of people, and they asked, what are you up to? Are you interested in doing something together? And so one thing just leads to another, and it's kind of a small community, actually.
You were working with Adam Carolla on cartoons, or you were kind of writing
Oh,
with
no,
him?
just on the cartoons, and that happened years ago. It was just a one-off thing. We met when he came into New York City, but I found that it wasn't someone who I really was bonding with like I was with other people. Other people I've worked with on things, I really enjoyed and stuff, and we just didn't click. He's, to be honest with you, he's got a large ego, and he's really smart, and he's way funnier than I am. And he is like going at 100 miles per hour, and he left me in the dust. He really is a very sharp guy, but he's also difficult, and I just couldn't keep up with him.
So I got a question about finally I'm a model.
Yeah.
What was the idea for this? Did this start out as a cartoon? Is this just something that it slowly came together? How did you come up with this?
This is typical of what I've done for the 1990s and the 1980s, doing pieces for different magazines and stuff, just humor pieces that didn't use cartoons. And that's why I never got into the cartoons. I just was doing this other thing of just trying to come up with premises and writing a humor piece. I did this, sort of thing for like National Lampoon and so forth. And I would just try to come up with different ideas and make them mash up together. In this case, I was trying to think of something to do that's, made me look stupid, and also something on clickbait. Those clickbait things really made me laugh. I thought, well, maybe if I just pushed it a little bit. And to be honest with you, I really didn't do much except I just take what's already there and I just add a little tiny twist to it. And it's almost what you see anyway on the websites.
Right. I've tried doing this clickbait humor, and I can't do it because I write exactly what the clickbait is. I can't make it funnier.
Paul, you don't have to ask me twice. Let's work on something together. My people are going to call your people.
Okay, I'll get some people first.
Get your people, and I have to get some people too. So let's do it.
Beth, you want to be people?
Yes, I want to be people. I'm your people.
Right.
Oh my gosh. This is so funny that how voting and tipping causes cancer. That just makes me laugh so hard. Oh my
What's funny? Yesterday, I was listening to another podcast, Smartless, and they had on James Burrows, who's like the guy who did Cheers and all these like big shows like Friends and stuff. And he said something that like is so obvious, but the four of us do it when we write our captions, which is, he says, 90% of humor is surprise. And it's so obvious, but of course that's what we've been doing, is just doing just a little twist to something, setting something up that's familiar. Everyone else could relate to it, but then you throw them a curveball.
Yeah.
Speaking of podcasts, you also have a podcast of your own, not too dissimilar to this one. How'd that come about? What made you want to kind of get into that?
It's very similar and totally different. I have not listened to it. I listen to your podcast every episode. I have not listened to my own. It's insufferable. People do listen to it because we get fan mail from people who say that they learned something. So God bless them. But, I just did it because Marty, who runs A Weekly Humorist, wanted to do a podcast, and we were trying to get Michael Schur off the streets. Now, that guy, he's a total royal pain in the ass, but he's also a real comic genius. I'm his biggest fan. I love his cartoons, and I wish there was a way I can get him to do more stuff. Like, one thing I did was I did a book with him called The Element of Stress, which I think it's a nice little book, but I would love to see him do his own books and do his own work.
Right here.
So much talent. He's a really nice guy. I love him, but I also think that he's a little lazy. So we were doing the podcast just to give him a little kick in the ass. And I have lots of stories that are fun. I know a lot of inside baseball stuff that I never get a chance to say because he talks over me, not like you guys.
Well, yeah, that's a good podcast. And Cartoon
Pad. I don't think we mentioned it's the Cartoon Pad. Did I just say it's the Cartoon Pad?
The Cartoon Pad.
That's what I heard. It's the Cartoon Pad.
I think I invited all of you to come on. Not together, because we already have too many people in the room as it is. But if anybody wants to come on and just explain to us what we're doing wrong, give us a little class to explain things, please.
We don't do things right, though, either. I mean, we just do things, whether wrong or right. We just do it.
Now, we could grow this into an enterprise. We should revisit the story, the idea we had before, the reality show. That would be interesting to do some kind of reality show. That's the next step.
So do you think now that you were unfortunately laid off, you'll kind of get back into submitting 10 a week and kind of do more than you have been doing?
Well, it's a blessing I got fired, by the way. I was an art director that took up all my time, and it's better now that I have the time. I'm working on my own books, and I've been doing that. I just came back from a road trip where I was interviewing curators at museums. That is a dream job. I was my mind exploded to how great these museums are, and seeing art every single day was so exciting. And that's a book that's coming out next year that I'm working on, along with these 3 other books. I mentioned a cookbook, and I'm working on a graphic novel as well. And then there's another book. I won't get into that book, but there's 4 books I'm working on. So doing batches for 10 batches or however many you need to do today, I'm not sure that's in the cards. I think I have to focus on the books. I do cartoons. I do about 6 or 7 cartoons now for regular gigs, regular weekly gigs for bankers and Wall Street guys. And I'm going to share one quick story about that I think is kind of interesting to your audience. And that is, I don't take all of those jobs. There's this one guy who wanted me for $3,000 to do cartoons of his ideas, one batch. He'll pay me $3,000, but to put my name on the batch and to submit them. And he was so convinced that he was going to sell all the ideas. And, I turned it down. I've turned down jobs like that because they're just so crazy. People don't realize. And they would tell me, they said, I'm telling you, my wife loves all these jokes. She told me, she goes, there's no way any of these are going to get rejected. And he told me the jokes. He told me the jokes. They were terrible.
Yeah, of course they were.
Why would you turn that down though? It seems like
Not you're putting your name on. He's putting his name on it.
The part of the deal was that they were going to be drawing my way. And then I thought, well, what I could do is this. I'll draw him in a different style, and then I'll use a different name. And I came up with a good one. I was going to use Pierre Noum de Plume and do a different style of his cartoon ideas. And then I thought, well, what am I saying? That's unethical, and it's really not being honest. And I want to get back into New Yorker. One day I want to convince them that, I do good cartoons, and that is certainly not the way to start off fresh. So, but you're right. It was very tempting. And that's not the only offer I got. I get weird fans who say they have an idea that know for sure could get in the magazine.
And it's has it ever been good?
Never.
That's funny.
When you go to cocktail parties and events, do people try to pitch ideas to you there?
Yeah, I would say the highlight of my career in the New Yorker has been if anyone sends me a selfie on social media and private messaging of a photo of a party that they're at and my cartoon's on the refrigerator door of the host. That's always kind of neat, and especially if there's only one cartoon on the refrigerator.
Yeah, to kind of know that they're getting seen, right?
Yeah, that is my corner. That's my niche. My wheelhouse is refrigerators. If there was a way I can monetize that, that's.
Or office cubicles. Yeah.
I know, my friend Peter Vey, he's the guy who does the great office cartoons.
Yes.
I'm not good at it. And the funny thing about Peter is he never really worked for an office, in an office. He's always been a cartoonist, but that's definitely his wheelhouse.
Yes. He's got great office cartoons.
I haven't heard from Peter in a while, but I really enjoyed your interview with him. I've been enjoying all the interviews, really.
Oh, well, thanks. And we're glad we got you on. Like I said, we've been waiting to get you on for a while now.
No, that's really nice. I'm glad I'm here, and it's helping me actually. You're getting me excited again about doing cartoons, and maybe I should do it.
Yeah, I hope you start
Definitely should.
doing more in greater numbers, just pumping out more and more. Like I said, there's not as many markets, but there are still a handful of markets that pay somewhat decent. How long does it take for you to draw a cartoon? Not come up with the idea, but to actually draw.
If something good doesn't come of this, it's going to be on your head. It takes a long time. I'll tell you my system, and by no means is this a good system for anyone else. It might not even be the best system for me. But what I like to do is I like to make a list of ideas where the idea is sort of like, well, let's say God playing pickleball, okay? And that would be like what I write down. And then I try to think of, okay, what's a caption for that? And then I'll maybe type in, on the seventh day, God played pickleball. Okay, so that gets put down on the list and on the bottom of the list for now. And I come up with more ideas. And then I sort them in the ideas that I like the best. And they kind of go to the top. And then when I have like 10 ideas at the top of the list that I think are the strongest, then I would draw them up. Now, to get like 10 ideas, it could take me maybe a week, but maybe a week and a half to come up with 10 ideas. And as you saw by going to do research on my cartoons and go online, most of my cartoons are hack. I'll be the first to say that I have some cartoons I'm proud of that I think are okay, but a lot of my cartoons are not good. So I have to kind of go through and weed out the really bad ideas and just keep on switching that list around. And then the bottom of the list will never get drawn. I'm going to ignore them eventually, unless I can find a way to improve the jokes. So that's the way I work.
For one thing, I think you're being way too critical. I think a lot of the stuff that has been published is very good.
Thanks again, Vin. Let's talk about you being my agent.
How do you come up with your ideas? What's your process there?
It's a lot to do with stupidity. Like I overhear something, but I mishear it.
Mhm.
Like you hear a twist of a word or something, or you misunderstand something. Like an example would be, I was just helping my friend put together his rowing machine.
Mhm.
And we're looking at the instructions and we're stuck at the end. We're at the last page. And then I didn't understand how to finish the read. There's a meter that goes on the machine to give you an indication what you're doing. But I didn't understand it. So I made something up as I'm reading instructions. And I said, and now this is how you hang your clothes up on the machine. So it just comes like just being stupid. And that joke actually could never be a cartoon because it's a low hanging fruit. And I would put that in the category as obvious.
Mhm.
But I do think the ideas come from getting into a state of playfulness. And this was taught to me by other people. That little book that John Cleese wrote about 2 years ago was very helpful and a great reminder to me that we all have to get into a state of playfulness so we feel like we're not afraid to make mistakes. That you could come up with ideas and no one's going to judge you if you make a bad cartoon idea or a bad caption. But you first just try to feel yourself out. You're throwing everything on the wall, and then you could see what might work.
Mhm.
I'd love to know if the three of you have any sort of system like that, whether it's conscious or subconscious, in the same manner.
Yeah, I
I
do
know
the same
Paul
thing.
does.
It's like I know when I'm not funny. It's just like, okay, I'm not gonna be funny for a while here. I just go off and do something else. But all of a sudden I'll start thinking about something, and all of a sudden it's like this part of my mind wakes up and starts, just riffing on things. And it's like, okay, I think I'm ready here. And they'll just start jotting things down like
Mhm.
you do. And just when the moment comes, you just got to take it and run with it.
Now, Paul, do you have a sounding board, like someone you could count on who can give you an honest assessment of something?
Not really. I'll talk to my wife occasionally, but she's really not interested in the cartoons or stuff that I do. It's something I do. So, well, here, this is what I do. I've actually got a sheet here on this last cartoon stack thing. You'll see that I've got all sorts of things written down on here, and so
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just I'm bouncing stuff off myself. It's like I'll write
Cool.
something down one day, and then I'll come back the next day and go, oh, that's interesting. Let's see what I can do with that.
And let me just explain to your listeners, it's a sheet with like 250 words. Now, I see a lot of your material online. I only know Vin's work from the podcast, but whatever Vin says, he's come up with really good captions. You're very consistent. It's very impressive how, but I don't see like your bad stuff. I just see one or two things that you're suggesting.
Yeah, like anyone else, most of it's probably bad, and you sift through. Well, the caption contest is a little easier because you have a thing to think about, right? If you try and come up with just if you say you just come up with a cartoon idea,
Yeah.
you would think it'd be more easy because it can be anything, but it's harder to focus your brain on finding a thing to think about. Whereas a caption contest, it's like, okay, it's two whales on a beach. I know I have to think about a joke for this. Whereas to come up with an original cartoon idea, it's the whole world is the topic, and it makes it more difficult to find that one thing to hone in on.
I feel like you're putting a restriction on yourself that I don't like. When you talk about the caption contest, you're afraid of repeating someone else's entry.
In what I just said, I mean, my point with the caption contest is it's as hard as it is, it's targeted. You know what you have to make a joke about, right? You have to solve this puzzle. Whereas if you want to come up with an original cartoon, there's no puzzle to solve. You just have to think of something totally random.
No, what I'm saying is that you always feel like the caption definitely can't be something that you see on the feed. You're afraid that someone else might have, like, if it's too easy, if it's not.
Yeah, I don't personally, I don't like obvious captions. Those are always my least favorite. Larry Wood, who's the best, who's won the most, doesn't have that problem. And I think that's to a large degree why he wins so much, because he typically sends us all of his captions, and they usually win. But he has no worries whatsoever about if it's obvious. He finds the theme he's going to write about, and then he writes the best caption for that. And he tends not to care whether or not it's going to be obvious.
Well,
But
I find myself
if I come up with a
talking.
caption, I think a lot of people are going to have this. I won't do it.
Yeah,
Because
I
it
find
doesn't have
myself.
that restriction.
I find myself talking to the podcast, to you guys, when you guys discuss that. And I'm saying to you guys, we'll just go for the obvious, but then add a twist to it, or add a little longer to it, because there's this thing that, it's got to be the shortest point. But I still think that captions are beautiful when they have that extra something, that little extra word can give it grace and add a little bit of timing to it that I happen to really like.
Yeah, and I would say that's probably the right strategy, because Larry wins more than I do for sure. So that's probably the right strategy. It just tends not to be the one that I like to do on myself.
Larry's a bum. Well, you'll catch up there. I know Larry, and we're gonna surpass him. Yeah.
No, we love Larry. We have him on like once a month or so. We communicate with him regularly.
I know. I hear from Larry sometimes too, but we've got to knock him down a peg.
Paul is very good at adding twists to the end of his captions. Like, I think you really have mastered that with several that you've been finalists in, like the PCV with the people hiking up the hill.
Yes.
And the suit behind him, and Paul turned it around so that the guy, she was having an affair with the guy, and say what your caption was, Paul, because I'm butchering it.
Put it on me now to remember what I did. Boy, what did I do on that one?
I know. And it was my husband will never find out about us. He's on a business trip.
Yes.
Which
that
was
such
I think one of the top 5 captions in the past few years. I thought
Did it win?
No,
actually
it's not.
Well,
You were a
Paul, I hope you
finalist,
learned your
though.
lesson, Paul.
You were a finalist though in that one, right?
It was a finalist. Yeah.
Mhm.
My husband will never find out about us. He's on a business trip.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was such a great twist, because it just was totally unexpected.
Yeah,
That's
It's
what I
rare
was
that
tried for.
the minute we heard it, like I said, that's going to win, and
Mhm.
it's rare that happens, and
Yeah.
it certainly when it's the home run like that, sometimes it's hard for crowdsourcing to miss. It's hard for the judges to miss.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's just so good where it's going to rise to the top.
It's creative too. It was a creative solution. Now, Beth, I saw that you posted a caption contest on your Facebook today.
Uh-huh.
And to my surprise, it's actually my drawing. That guy resurfaced from
Which-
Run Your Pool.
Oh yeah. He did resurface. I got an email, like an email blast from Run Your Pool, and saw that they were having the caption contest. Apparently they had one last week too, but I didn't see it.
They have one
Um,
every week. They've been doing it with me every week till now. And then thank you for posting that.
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
that was a fun one.
Yeah, and people should go to I hope people know how to find you on Facebook, because that's where all the magic happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a fun one. A lot of good things you can work out a lot of good things with that one, I think.
What site is that? It's called Run Your Pool.
Runyourpool.com.
Yeah, they hired me like a half a year ago. And again, I'm doing these like caption contests, cartoons for in-house publications and corporations that you don't see, but they all have these like newsletters. And some of these companies, the newsletter is humongous.
Huh.
And that's what they do. And they've been hiring me on the side.
Yeah,
That-
that's fun.
How does that work? They just say, come up with a sports themed caption contest and
In
you
that
just-
case, yes. And in the case of the bank, there's a bank that hires me. Everything has to do with money and investing. And that cartoon's always on that theme. There's a whole bunch of different places and they each have their own niche.
do you find that difficult to do, to come up with a cartoon specifically for a caption contest?
No, because it's not really doing my full job. I really feel like it's me doing a half-assed job. I mean, I feel like, geez, you're paying me. I didn't come up with a caption, but I mean, if that's what you want. And I find so many of these people, a lot of these Wall Street guys, they want to come up with the caption. They want the glory. These guys some of them are hams.
I wonder why that is, if it's an ego thing or if it's that they need a creative outlet because their jobs are too intense. What do you think is driving that?
I think you're an expert on that subject. You said it right. That's exactly it, I think. They have this need to want to, it's an A-type personality.
Mhm.
And
Oh, well, we've had you over an hour. I
Wait.
don't want to keep you too much longer, but did you have anything else you wanted to,
I have something. Before you do your sign off and have him plug his current things, I have a question from a fan that I told the fan that I would read the question to you.
good
Okay,
God.
Bob?
Yeah.
Okay. The question, it says this. Hi, Bob. I saw your adorable cartoon on Facebook of a cat sitting in a sink. Do you know what he's talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, he says, my cat does the exact same thing. She likes to jump in the sink and bat at the dripping faucet. My question is, would you advise taking the unit apart and trying to replace the washer, or using Teflon tape to fix the drip, or replace the entire unit?
Okay. This is definitely a DIY. You do not need to hire a plumber. It's just a matter of distracting the cat long enough to lift it up out of the sink and then disinfecting the rest of your sink. It's really not that hard. I could post something on YouTube showing how to fix this. This is kind of based on my promotion the last month for my new book. It comes out in a few days. It's called The Complete Book of Cat Names That Your Cat Won't Answer To Anyway. And it's been a fun book. I've heard from some people who I really admire, comedians who got an advance copy or saw it, and they said it was very funny. So I'm really excited about that. And what I've been doing is I said, if anybody buys a copy of the book, I'll illustrate their cat. And I've done about 25 illustrations of cats.
Nice.
oh, that's very nice.
And it would be fun.
Yeah,
Always
that's a
looking
good
for
idea.
ways. The book business is really going through a tough time. So you have to come up with a way to make it, set up and get attention. And I've always tried to create books that you don't want to get as an ebook. That for some reason, the book is more of an experience if you have the physical copy. So for instance, the bookstore book that Beth mentioned earlier, that book opens like a garage door. The door opens as a flap, and then it opens, the pages go the other way, just because it's like an unusual experience. And with every book, I've been trying to do something a little different.
Yeah, well, that's a great idea. If somebody wants to buy the book and get their cat drawn, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, and thanks for supporting me. Anybody who buys the book, another way of trying to get books moved, we only price it like $15. I've lowered the price of everything. I said, let's just get people to see the book, enjoy it, and the profit will come around another way. People will get to enjoy my work. They see my cartoons, and I build a following and a brand. And I think that's the best strategy at this point, is to just get the stuff out there. This is coming from a person who's doing cartoons for an audience of 3 people now. And don't listen to what I have to say.
Well, this was great. Thank you so much. And look forward to seeing more of your stuff. And I'm sure we'll have you back on in the future.
Well, thank you very much. It was great to see you all. And if anybody has a beef with me, come on my podcast and let's hammer it out.
Sounds good.
Okay, we'll do that.
Thank you.
Bob.
Okay,
Good night.
thanks, Bob.
Okay.